Good morning. It is July 2nd, and this is a Finance and Administration Committee meeting. First up on the agenda is public comment. If you have a public comment, please come to the podium here and then address I guess it's the whole dais. You have 3 minutes to speak, and please let us know your name and where you vote from. This big of a crowd, no public comment.
Here we go.
All right.
We got one.
We got one? All right, here we go. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Dave Barnowski, and look, it works. This was just corrected between now and the last meeting. My name is Dave Barnowski, and I vote in the Port Sheldon Township. There's a budget correction line for $1 million about solid waste management. Until a few minutes ago, I thought you were going to be giving back $1 million to Eagle. I spoke to the staffer in the room, and it doesn't seem that's the case. I wish you would take it out of the budget correction, make it a line item, and explain it to the public, what you're doing with it. She's willing to. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hi, Sheila Dutloff, Holland Township. I just have one question myself on that too. I know that originally that grant was approved for GVSU, and then it ended up looking like it was going to go to Holland. I know that there were some issues with that because of the grant language, and that the matching funds had to come from the county, not from the municipality. And I believe that that's what was behind that falling through with Holland. My question is, what happened to GVSU? Why isn't GVSU being considered, or is it being considered now? Why did it fall off of the radar to start with when it was approved for GVSU? Thank you.
I'm online, yes.
Hi, Karen Obitz, Spring Lake. Actually, I drove here to ask that same question that Sheila just raised because I was at the meeting in which I do recall GVSU being the site that was initially earmarked, or that's maybe not the best word. Anyway, the focus of where that sustainability center might go. And so, yeah, I would like to know if that is still an option and when that might be in the conversation that ensues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? We will look into that. I think that we plan on discussing it when the agenda item comes up. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Support.
Is there any discussion? Moving on to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And same sign for nay. All right, moving on to consent resolutions. Do I have a motion for the consent resolution?
Support.
Is there any discussion about the consent resolution? Hearing none, we'll go, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion, or the agenda item passes. So on the agenda and action item requests, we have number 1, statement of review. Is there a motion to approve the statement of review?
So moved.
Second.
And discussion? I know Karen is out. Yes, is there anybody stepping in for Karen today? Not appear to be. You get a vacation here. Pardon me? Just statement of review in the event there were any questions, that's all. So as we go forward. Yep, I understand. All right. So all those in favor, actually we'll do a roll call vote on this one.
All right. Mr. Belknap.
Yes.
Mrs. Curran.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel.
Yes.
And Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to action item number 2, it's accounts payable for May 27th, 2024 through June 21st, 2024. The motion is to approve the general claims in the amount of $14,748,638.92 as presented by the summary report for May 27, 2024 through June 21st, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Right. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go for a roll call vote.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to action item number 3 is community mental health position request. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the request from the community mental health to add one FTE business analyst, unclassified, pay grade 12 at a cost of $117,000 or $117,634. That's funded by Medicaid reimbursement. Do I have a motion
So moved.
Second.
and discussion? Dr. Bashir's here in the audience if you have any questions. No?
A super quick
Super quick.
overview.
Yeah, you want to do a super quick overview?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Bashir, Interim Director, CMH. This position is a vital position. We've actually had it on the books for the last 8 months trying to fill. It's going to help us with our electronic medical record analysis process, and it's a key position for us to look at several new tools that the state of Michigan are requiring us to use. One is called the MichiCans, is a new assessment tool. And the other process is electronic visit verification, where every single time somebody goes out and does a service, we now have to electronically verify it and integrate it into our electronic medical record system. You may remember that over 10 months ago, or almost 11 months ago, we had 3 key personnel in our IT division leave the county to take leadership roles at Health West or Muskegon CMH. So this position is vital for us to rebuild that infrastructure to ensure compliance with our whole IT and EMR regulatory things that we have. I can take questions on it.
I think you're looking forward to potentially adopting a new EHR system. and
Yeah,
this
we're
position might
we're
be-
looking into the possibility definitely of doing that. And we have several reporting requirements in our current EMR system. There's a lot of workarounds to do. I mean, it's been a good relationship, but it's been a relationship that now has to be reexamined. Out of the 46 CMHs, 38 of them are using one other vendor. So anytime there's a requirement at the state, it's much easier for those people to change it because they can talk to 35 other people to integrate it. And so we're looking into that. It's also part of my analysis and looking at the infrastructure that we have at CMH for IT compliance and the various other requirements we have. It is a Medicaid funded position and we already have it in the budget. In essence, the Medicaid budget is please spend it on this or we will take it. So if we don't utilize the revenue, then we lose it the next year. I wish that wasn't the case. You get no benefit of being a good steward of the money and having savings. You can't keep any Medicaid savings in the CMH budget. It goes to a regional entity. So it's vital that we utilize these resources on behalf of our residents and consumers, or we end up getting a decrease in our revenue next year. It's kind of like the opposite of how I do my budget. I try to save things and plan accordingly and have a rainy day fund. The state has a different worldview on that. So we need to ensure that we have the appropriate infrastructure to meet our regulatory needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Bashir. All right, and we'll go to a roll call vote. And the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the request for the community mental health 1 FTE business analysis analyst and unclassified pay grade 12 at a cost of $117,634 funded by Medicaid reimbursement.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the Assessing Division Manager pay grade change. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the request from Equalization to increase the pay grade for Assessing Division Managers from a grade 11 to a grade 13 at a total cost of $30,393. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Or is there discussion? I think this was part of, Equalization was also, and the team was going to help other municipalities and townships with new work.
This is, I did talk with Equalization, the director was off this week. This is directly related to the contract positions, specifically to Georgetown Township. And they had a significantly difficult time trying to get people to accept the position at the pay. It requires a Michigan Advanced Assessing Officer certification at level 3, which apparently is much higher than the pay grade we had originally offered. HR did a wage study and looked into it, and so found that Muskegon was about 10% higher. Georgetown, before they contracted with us, were trying to hire people at 30% higher than that wage and still weren't be successful. So the funds are there through the contract. This was just a way to get qualified people to apply and retain them.
A recruitment tool, and you've done the due diligence. Is there any further discussion? Thank you, John. Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel.
Yes.
Mr. Moss
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to action item 5, the Broadband Wired Infrastructure Expansion Agreement. The motion is to authorize the board chair and clerk register to sign the amendment to Broadband Wired Infrastructure Expansion Partnership Agreement between Ottawa County and 123Net, Inc. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Is there discussion? Paul? Mr. Sachs?
Good morning. Good to see each of you. I'd like to start by saying thank you to this body and the Board of Commissioners for your unanimous support of advancing this critical 21st century infrastructure across the county. Broadband access, as we all know, is so incredibly important. And what we're able to launch will be enduringly positive for our residents and businesses into the future. So really a great project. Glad we're pursuing it. And as you recall, in December of last year, we approved an agreement with 123Net to pursue and secure funding from the state of Michigan's revolving grant. We were awarded that funding, but it was after the statutory review process 45 days that the state had, where providers could provide input on where we were looking to build out, and the state was refining eligible areas. They came back to us with a refined grant award amount. So it was reduced from $14 million grant to $8.8 million, which, in keeping with the ratios of match between 123Net and Ottawa County, our match amount required for this award was reduced from $7.5 million to $4.2 million. Our miles of fiber that will go in with this grant award is still significant. We're looking at about 250 miles of new fiber that will pass around 6,000 households. We know that there are continued gaps in access that will occur with after this grant funding. So we're diligently pursuing other paths. Not only working with 123Net to prepare for the BEAD grant funding that the state will release, we're working with our tower infrastructure provider, Tilson Infrastructure, to look at new opportunities for fixed wireless across the county. I've been having particular specific conversations with officials in the Chester Township area, for example, that really need some special attention. And there's some opportunities to use that remaining $3.5 million from the original $7.5 that you dedicated to this work to effectively and diligently and thoughtfully use that money to fill the gaps in access that we need. So at this time, with this amendment, that simply reflects the new Robin grant amount and the terms of our payment to 123 Net as they pursue this work. The first payment, if this amendment is authorized, would occur very soon because 123 Net is almost done with the high level design. We're talking 250 miles of fiber. There's lots of details that need to go into this. So they're very close to being done with that high level design. Then 123 Net will release an RFP for engineering firms to do the more granular engineering detailed level designs that really gets into the right-of-way specifics and cabinets and all the electrical components for the entire infrastructure. The next payment then through 123 Net as laid out in this amendment would only occur after they have passed at least 20% of those homes that need access. And then there'll be continued payouts once we have documentation that residents are getting connected and the passings are happening and the fiber is in the ground. Open for questions.
Commissioner Moss?
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Quick question. Just help me understand one thing. So this would be utilizing the remaining 3.5 million, right?
This would, for this Robin grant, this would be the 4 million match. We originally with Robin grant had a match of the 7.495. The refined grant award adjusted our match contribution and reduced that to 4.2.
So is this just updating just that part of it?
Exactly.
Okay.
So yes.
And the 3.5 then, what is the intention to use that for?
To continue to fill gaps in access across the county that we know this Robin grant will not address. So how do we thoughtfully and diligently maximize those dollars and leverage additional funds possibly needed to build out remaining areas?
The 3.5, will that come back through finance later for approval of contracts or BEAD or other things like that?
Yes, most definitely. Nothing will advance unless it goes before the Board of Commissioners. The request is that 3.5 would remain available for broadband once I bring forward a strong, robust plan that we all agree with.
So the 4 that's in here, really this, because I went back, I saw the signature page from before. I think it was December maybe.
Yes.
So this really is just updating that document to
That is
reflect our current reality.
correct.
Okay, great.
Further questions? I think what I heard you say is that the 123 Net is kind of they're incentivized to provide quality outcomes for our consumers or our constituents here in Ottawa County. So
Yes.
they're going to test and verify before they receive payment for the services.
I don't know about the testing of the services. It's the way the contract is written and the fiber in the ground has passed those homes. Then
The homes don't have an opportunity to test whether or not it's effective, it's working for them.
once they connect, they will. And 123 Net is a well-known internet entity service provider. We have learned about their customer service needs. They're very hands-on, very supportive. They do intend to create retail and technical service locations across the county. So there's a real strong emphasis on good contact from a customer service perspective to deliver what our residents need.
Oh, no, I'm very impressed with 123 Net. I just thought maybe I heard a quality component in there that sounded it sounded exceptional. So it's great as long as they have customer
More
service opportunities. Yeah.
more of an implementation level versus a test, right? Like it's
Yes.
we've signed off that this is indeed in the ground, and it's kind of common when you're in construction, you're hitting percentages and
Absolutely. And
There's in the ground and actually working are kind of
Right.
two different things, right? Yeah. So,
And this has a lot to do with their visibility and with their integrity in the community. They need to deliver quality services, their reputation on the line, and we expect them to proceed as they need to.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Joe?
Are there any general updates on My High and like how the state of Michigan is looking at broadband infrastructure and things like that long term?
Yeah, they do have that larger kind of BEAD implementation plan. The MyHigh director, Eric Frederick, um, he has been working for a long time with his staff to say, how do we maximize the federal dollars that are becoming available for broadband in the state of Michigan? He remains confident that the funding that's been allocated to state that will be distributed to counties and local governments will be enough to address all of our needs. We'll have to see how that shakes out because these awards will continue to be competitive. You know, BEAD is a larger pot of money. We still need to apply. And it's the thoughtfulness in how we do this, right? And I'm thankful that the state is looking at a variety of technologies to address that need, which helps the tax dollars go a long way. Fiber in the ground everywhere, that is the ideal solution. But to maximize what we need with these dollars, I think there has to be a combination of those technologies that are reliable and affordable for everyone. And what I hear coming out of the state, they're recognizing how we need to think very creatively, if you will, to address this need. This funding won't be around continuously. We need to be thoughtful in how we do it now. And I continue to receive those gut checks, if you will, here in Ottawa County, that our strategy and our approach is one that's being looked at as a model on how to do this right.
And is BEAD a federal bucket that's coming down through the state?
The funding was from the infrastructure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Act,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
that went through.
Yep.
The state then branded that bucket themselves as BEAD.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Right, so the motion on the table is to authorize the board chair and clerk register to sign the amendment to broadband wired infrastructure expansion partnership agreement between Ottawa County and 123 Net. So we'll go to a vote. We're going to go to a vote. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Wetzel,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Next on the agenda is the Brownfield Plan Amendment Prospects Flats. The motion on the table is to recommend and forward to the Board of Commissioners resolution approving the Brownfield Plan Amendment for Project Flats LLC located in the city of Hudsonville. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Their discussion. Got Becky here. I should probably keep you just up here for 6 and 7. Is there any questions? Good morning.
Good morning. I will just give a quick overview of the project and then answer any questions you might have. You were introduced to this recently when we did our little overview. We talked about the first project that was approved on June 11 and then introduced the next two that we knew you'd be seeing here shortly. So Prospect Flats is also in the city of Hudsonville. This project has been in the works, just like Terra was. It has gone through Hudsonville's Downtown Development Authority and gotten a pass-through agreement approved. City of Hudsonville passed their resolution approving the project. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority reviewed the project and is recommending it for approval by this board, which we hope will occur on July 9. And at that time, we will also be holding the public hearing, which you will see in your action request was listed as June 25. That was the original plan. That meeting was canceled. Rachel quickly reposted those public hearings. We'll hold those directly before the resolution entertainment on July 9. So that's where this project is in the process. So again, just briefly, it's going to bring 41 residential units online. This one is all residential. There's no retail or commercial component with this project. Of those 41 units that are going to be built, there's going to be 5 that will be held out for area median income at 90% or less. So it'll be, I think, 2 1-bedrooms and 3 2-bedrooms. And if I'm wrong, Trevor from Moxie is here to speak to that. So this project will be $8 million in capital investment. About 1.2 of that will be for eligible activities going back to the developer. And then the remaining amounts of tax capture will go back to required state education tax, like we've discussed in the other projects. We have to, according to Act 381. There will be administrative costs that come back to the county for administration and implementation. And then also there will be deposits into our local Brownfield revolving fund, which will then allow us to help more projects and communities in the future. So in a really short version, that's the Prospect Flats project. And I can answer questions if you have them, but since there's folks in the room that are here that are deeply involved in the project, I'd love to have them come up and answer questions you might have too. So Trevor, as I mentioned, from Moxie is here, and Tyler from the city of Hudsonville is also here, as is Dan Strickwerda. So any questions on the project? Fire away.
If I necessarily have questions, the only thing I noticed is that one of the resources cited for, it's like rationale for housing needs was a housing needs assessment and was conducted in May of 19. So it's 5 years out. Is that something, do you know anything about the housing needs assessment? And how
It
often
was
does that
updated. There's other data in there that's updated. I think
Okay.
it was 2021 update was a more recent one to that reevaluated what those numbers of units are. And I believe they just got higher,
Yeah,
higher and
that's
higher
right.
since 19.
You
So there
feel
was
the
an
growth,
update.
right?
Yes.
So I didn't
Yep.
know how often that happened.
Yeah, I did notice that in the plan too. And then further in the plan, it references, like, if I think in the attachments, it references the 2021 update, but I did go back to the updated version and compare those. So
Years we do.
I don't know how often that's done. That's kind of a Paul thing. I don't know how
It's a
often
Paul
we do
thing.
the housing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And do you do that, Paul? Or? Okay. Wonderful. Be curious to see, because like I said, we feel the growth, right?
Yeah, the next update to all, and there's regional plans that are created also. We have our Ottawa County assessment, and then there's regional plans that were designed to help support accessing other incentives for housing too. So it'll be interesting when those are updated after all these housing TIF programs come online, what is the impact to how quickly have we started to address that demand need, and how effective is this new tool?
Yeah, it feels like
So.
there are a lot of projects that are underway right now too to help. And I think somewhere along the line, I heard 18,000 unit deficit is what we have.
Yeah, it
So
depends on what region and all those. Yeah, I
project.
wouldn't even begin to throw a number out on which community or what the number is. So I can do that on farmland, but not as much on housing.
No, if our guests would like to come and share more information, that's great.
I think
Please
Tyler
spend
would
the
like to
time.
come
Please
up
spend
and
the time
speak to the
coming
project,
in.
please.
Share
Yes.
opportunity to share. Yeah.
Fair and shine.
Thank you, Becky, and thanks for allowing me the privilege to speak before you today. This is a very exciting project in the heart of Hudsonville, 41 units, as Becky said, 22 two-bedroom units, 19 one-bedroom units of modern housing. When we talk about affordable housing, I think sometimes we get lost into the types of housing, and this will be unique to Hudsonville. One of our goals is to attract workforce housing, young professionals, couples. As a new resident to Hudsonville, this is the exact kind of living situation that my fiance at the time and I were looking for. So it is, I won't quite call it a missing middle. I'm sure we could come up with some data to justify that, but it's the type of housing that not only do we need housing, period, but the type of housing that folks want to live in. Secondly, this is along 32nd Avenue, which is a main corridor running north and south in the city of Hudsonville. And this will take care of a blighted building and a situation that the city's had to deal with for several years prior to my arrival here. The DDA, the city, and Moxie have had a great collaboration relationship going back to about 8 months ago when this project was pitched. And the impact, not only looking at it from a housing perspective, but an economic development perspective of our goals that we wish to achieve in the downtown. This just really enhances the entire area. So we're fully supportive of the project. And if there's any questions, I can attempt to answer them, but there's more qualified people in the room.
Now, Tyler, you said you're new to the area?
I'm new to the area as a little over a year and a half ago.
Oh, where'd you come from?
South Haven.
South Haven.
So I'm
Michigan.
from Southwest Michigan, but new to West Michigan.
And what's your role with Hudsonville?
I'm the city manager.
Your city manager. Well, nice to meet you. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nice
Well,
to meet you. Thank you
good opportunity. Thank you.
for coming here. Do we have any questions of Tyler?
Really just a comment that, this type of project in partnership with the city and their broad vision of their land use plan and revitalizing downtown, this seems like it would be the most appropriate type of project for this funding. And, we talked about this with the Brownfield Authority that, residential's, I think are going to be, because a lot of our brownfields are in urban cores. And it just kind of makes sense that, we can reuse those properties for things like this. So, it's very exciting and great for Hudsonville and Ottawa County.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Moss?
Just a random question. Do we know approximately what the rents are going to be like in these types of units?
Off the top of my head, Trevor?
Good morning, Trevor Petrolia. I'm a Georgetown Township resident. Rents for the one beds will be between 15 and 1650. And those will be 620 square feet to 780 square feet. The two beds will be from 18 to 1975, and those range from about 830 square feet to 1,050 square feet. So, and a couple other things that Tyler didn't mention on the project, we're taking those vacant unused parcels, the blighted building, but we're providing community amenities, public bike share, public EV charger, and then a public outdoor kind of community space that is right off the sidewalk on 32nd. So some kind of unique things that we're adding to the community as part of the project. So, yep.
Commissioner Curran?
Maybe that the statement affordable housing might be subjective because I don't personally consider these rents affordable, especially for the size of these apartments. So I guess my question would be, are you going to be taking any of these and putting them towards HUD housing, or like, is there a certain allotment of these homes that are going to be HUD homes and you'll accept HUD?
Nope, none of them will be HUD. They will all be within the 80 to 110% of the Ottawa County AMI. So they are in the area median income for, that's what the rents are based off of, the 80 to 110% AMI. So
Is
no
that
HUD.
something?
Where we're at.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, when you have a demand as high as we do without
It's
supply,
ridiculous.
that's what happens.
There's
Like I
other.
said, affordable housing, that must be a subjective term
No,
because
I
that's
know.
not affordable. Well, I mean, everything's outrageous right now, but yeah.
Yes, go
If
ahead.
I may add on to that, I think that's a great point. I think affordable housing, the term gets tossed around way too often. But we're talking workforce housing, and we're talking and looking at the need of housing. If you were to go on Zillow right now, I think you'd find 2 maybe homes available under 300,000, and that number only nominally increases when we go to 400,000. So the demand is there. We've worked with with Humanity. We're looking at other high density areas around the city. We are confined, but we're talking downtown living as well. Look at downtown. I'm from South Haven. Downtown South Haven is not a term where we would use affordable housing. So I definitely agree with that statement. We have more work to do, but I think this helps us get us where we need when we're talking about workforce housing and weighing the demand.
Yeah,
So I
workforce
think the
might be good.
location is ideal too, when you talk about workforce, because it's between 2 urban settings, basically. So,
Anything else?
thank you.
Thank you.
How much was the
I'm sorry.
2-bedroom again? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I've got it.
Yep.
Down. So
The-
2 bedrooms, 18 to 1975, 18,000 and 1975. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And if you look at some of the housing that's going in downtown Holland, I think it's pretty comparable, actually.
Yeah, we're all of our rents are based off market comparables. There's a new 140 unit Hudsonville. Zeeland has some new project. Granville has a new 408 unit project that we're the contractor on. So we're using market rents that are for brand new product, which is with today's costs, financing, construction, land. It's very hard to make things number, and we're trying to get the rents to as low as we possibly can. So.
But like home ownership, yeah, exactly what it costs to get in now, too.
Like I
It's
said,
pretty
I think
significant.
affordable housing is not quite the term. You know what I mean? I think more HUD housing, more, for lower income when I think affordable housing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the motion on the table is to recommend and forward to the Board of Commissioners a resolution approving the Brownfield Plan Amendment for Prospect Flats LLC located in the city of Hudsonville. Go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Next on the agenda is another Brownfield project, Brownfield Plan Amendment for Windsor Place. The motion is to recommend and forward to the Board of Commissioners a resolution approving the Brownfield Plan Amendment for Windsor Place located in the village of Spring Lake. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
In discussion, do I come and present Windsor Place? Thank you.
Yeah, so this project is Windsor Place. Again, was introduced to you in that same presentation. I'm not sure what the magic is with 41 units, but also 41 housing units. So we similarly held 5 units of those reserved for attainable. And those are, I think, are 3 studios at 85 and 2 one-beds at 90. Jamie can correct me if I'm wrong. Jamie is here from Veniclassen on that. So, but this is a project that is right in the village of Spring Lake. The DDA, again, did their pass-through. We've gone through all those steps. The village passed their resolution. Brownfield reviewed and is recommending for approval, public hearing right alongside this one on the 9th before you guys will entertain the resolution. And this is where the old Spring Lake Township Fire Station used to be. So there's some contamination that's going to be addressed there. It's just an empty gravel lot that's prime for infill, prime for residential, 2 doors up from the Epicurean Village, which has a lot of amenities. It's another brownfield project that we've done a few steps from Tanglefoot Park, the new community space there in the village of Spring Lake. So putting 41 units of residential and about 1,700 square feet of retail, I think it's 1,700 square feet in this location is an ideal use for this spot. So again, we do have folks here that can speak to it better than me, and I appreciate that they're here to support it. So if you have other questions, Jamie from Veniclassen is here, as is Brady Sellner from the village of Spring Lake. So if they would like to come up and speak, or if you have specific questions. So Brady, would you like to come say a few words, or would you?
Took the time to come. Definitely would love to hear from you.
Good morning. So I'm Brady Sellner. I'm the village manager in Spring Lake. So I picked up this project. I'm 3 months on the job, so I appreciate working with the county, of course, through the Brownfield. And the village of Spring Lake is supportive, of course, of the Brownfield plan and the project. Generally, it is in our core downtown, and I think it'll continue the positive momentum and growth that we're seeing in our core downtown. And of course, it's also going to provide much needed housing. So it's going to be 10 studio apartments, 25 one-bedroom, 1 two-bedroom unit, and then 5 townhomes along Exchange Street. And then there's going to be some commercial space. It's 2,600 or almost 2,700 square feet of commercial space. So happy to answer any questions.
10 studio and 5 townhomes. And do you have anybody already asking for apartments or townhomes or?
So I do know there's some initial conversations with,
I guess is what I'm asking.
I guess, in the commercial space, there is a tenant that is in conversation with the developer for the commercial space. And I'm not entirely sure on the housing units, how much interest. We're hoping to have this. We're still working through the planning process. We have a meeting in July, and then it'll go to final PUD approval. So hoping to have construction started in September, October.
It's a great location. So do you know what the rents are or planned rents are?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jamie Booth with Veniclassen Development, and the rents are going to be, pull this up. So for the studio apartments, they're between 1,300 and 1,350. One beds, 1,500 to 1,600, very similar to Prospect Flats. 2 bedrooms are 19 to 1975. The townhomes are a little bit more, just because there's more expense to those. So we're estimating about 2,175 for those. And then we do have, a tenant lined up for the commercial space, which we're very happy about. So hopefully they'll be moving in the same time we're opening up the apartments.
Do you happen to have the square footage of those?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you happen to have the square footage of
I
those?
don't have those on hand, but I want to say our studios are roughly like 400 to 500 square feet. The one beds are, let me guess, 600 to 800 roughly. And then the one beds are probably a little under 1,000 square feet. And the townhomes, though, are a little bigger at probably 1,050, I believe.
Commissioner Curran, go ahead.
I have a question. Again, with this project as well, are we able to take any of these homes and put them towards actual affordable housing and accept like a certain percentage of HUD, like even if it's just 2 or 3 apartments or 5 apartments?
You know, we haven't gone off after that type of incentives where it's market rate. We're working with the MEDC to get us, well, now it's a RAP grant from them, and through what they're trying to do, it's 120% and below. And through the Brownfield TIF, we're guaranteeing that we're going to keep, it's actually 2 studios and then 3 1-bedrooms at between 85 and 95% AMI. And that's really, you know, your workforce housing. So we're
AMI is?
American or average medium income.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Becky, is there any way that we could possibly work that out where we created some HUD incentives or is there any way to put this into this?
This incentive can't be cleared up with tech type of projects. These just aren't some of the ones that are coming to the authority at this time. The authority is looking at what our options are to drive outcomes that we want from these projects. We've started with, you know, what are the actual rates? Because the developers can choose what rates and how many units they want to hold. So the Brownfield Authority came back with, well, you know, let's propose a number of units and what rate we want to hold those at. So that's where we've started. I really don't know how Section 8 HUD would layer up this. I know LIHTC is part of this. I am not probably well versed enough to know how that would fit in with this at this point. That's something that we would have to explore if a project like that came before the authority. But at this time, we haven't seen one of those. But I do know that the payment of the tax credits are a bit eligible for these projects, but we've just not seen one in our area right now. I'm not aware of one coming to us yet of the other projects that might.
Looks like Paul.
Yeah, and I'll jump in real quick. So another project in the Village of Spring Lake, Samaritas, it occurred before I started. It's currently under construction, but that is a low income project in the Village of Spring Lake currently. So we have one being constructed right now. So this will be some units are more controlled, but this is a market rate project.
Commissioner Moss?
I guess I just add a couple comments, like all these projects are unique, the location that they are, the types of incentives and everything. So they're not always going to check every box that, you know, we might want to check, but that's just the market. And speaking to the market, when rates are, you know, 6, 7, or 8% or whatever, that's just overall price, you know, the cost of housing is very high right now. If you look at the difference between a mortgage at 7% and a mortgage at 3%, which we were seeing, it's a significant difference for the homeowner. And that impacts rental rates and things like that too. So for the current time, for the foreseeable future, for now, we're going to have high cost of living in a lot of ways in our economy, which is well outside the control of Ottawa County to a large degree, and just kind of is what it is. We can keep trying to be creative in other areas.
It sounds like we are addressing kind of the full span of what's needed for housing in the community as well.
But yeah, and there's lots of different ways. I mean, you know, the Housing Commission is looking at other options that are very, you know, different than what we're talking about today, and that's great too. They're, you know, they're not an authority, you know, they're just an advisory, you know, group, but they have some great ideas that they're working on. And so I think as people see our current cost of living continue, we'll hope to see some more creativity.
Mr. Sachs, did you have something to say?
You don't
Sure.
mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, not
Thank
at
you.
all.
I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Moss.
Oh.
The housing ecosystem, there's a lot of activity that is occurring, and specifically with HUD housing is is separate as Section 8. So our Housing Commission, we don't own and operate Section 8 housing. Grand Rapids Housing Commission owns and operates Section 8 housing, and those are all based on housing choice vouchers, and there's lotteries for those, and it's a very limited number of vouchers that people can get that help offset the cost for low income individuals. So to Commissioner Moss's point, there's different products are being built, and the more products you get onto the market, it simply helps the overall rate. But HUD is a different, unique feature that's just vouchers, and that's owned and operated by like a housing commission that has that authority. So there is some neat work coming out of the Housing Commission as well as we think about these square footage of units that are being built as apartments and rentals. The Housing Commission is looking at under 1,000 square foot units that would be for sale units without any, and the goal here is without any government subsidies, and figure out diligently how to do that and make it work. And we're making strides forward. So everything that's happening here today, and with the work in Spring Lake Village and Hudsonville, Housing Commission, partners at Habitat or Jubilee, all of those combined, just more product in the market helps long-term costs being driven down. So, thank you.
Thank you. Right, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Nice to meet you. All right, so the motion on the table is to recommend and forward to the Board of Commissioners a resolution approving the Brownfield Plan Amendment for Windsor Place located in the Village of Spring Lake. And go to a vote.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Moving on to rooftop repair and safety contract. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a contract for roof repair and installation of safety features at 3 county buildings for a total of $131,999.10. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion. Cameron? Good
morning.
Cameron. Nice
I'm-
to meet you and welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm Cameron. I'm the new Director of Facilities. So this safety proposal includes a couple different things. The Fulton Street CMH in Grand Haven parking lot guardrail installation. That is a parking lot that has a partial retaining wall on it. There's a like 4.5-foot drop on the other side. Major safety concern there. The second one is DHHS on James Street, installing some roof railings and a safety ladder on the exterior of the building. The third thing is here at the administration building, some minor roof repairs and safety grates around the skylights.
Do you have any questions of Cameron? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so the motion on the table is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a contract for roof repair and installation of safety features at 3 county buildings for a total of $131,999.10. Go to a vote.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Next on the agenda is drain revolving fund increase. The suggested motion is to approve the request to allocate an additional $825,000 to the Department of Water Resources Commissioner for a revolving fund. The goal is to increase the Department Water Resources revolving fund from $175,000 to $1 million. Our request is to add $825,000 to the revolving fund from the settlement received from the Monsanto lawsuit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And discussion. Commissioner Bush.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Joe Bush, your Water Resources Commissioner. Appreciate the time this morning, Madam Chair and Finance Committee. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there might be some, but I know there was quite a bit of information on the cost and the cost savings in the packet. But I'm happy to go through the process of how we fund it currently and why I'm asking for the 825. That's probably the biggest, right? Like why? So to start off, our current revolving fund amount is 175,000. That gets me maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months of drain maintenance. So when you look at the numbers, and I did a comparison, Kent especially because we have a lot more drains than Kent County, and they have a $1.4 million revolver. What the revolver is money in, money out. So say we do a drain today, we pay for it. Say it's 50 grand of maintenance we did in that drain. Currently, I don't have any money to pay for it, so I go out and get a note because we don't have the money. So there's no pot of money like people think that the county just funds all county drains. That's not how it works. That's not drain code. Chapter 12 in drain code, everybody got a copy of chapter 12, and it talks about a revolver. It's money in, money out. So like I said, currently we have 175,000, and I was asking for up to $1 million because of the amount of work we do in this county. Currently, say we did a $50,000 project, we would do a comp of cost, and then we would go out and get a note or a borrowing from a bank. Maybe borrow from another drain, but we typically go, there's not money in those drains typically. So we go out and do a borrowing from a bank and then cover that until the end of the year. So what that means is at the end of September, we have to have a total number of drains we worked in, a comp of cost, and that number goes to the townships. It goes to the county treasurer and goes to the township treasurer. Then it gets on the tax bill for the winter taxes. So that 50 grand that I would spend today, technically I won't see that till next year because it goes on the winter tax bill that we'll put on, I say we, the townships and the county, puts on the taxes to pay for that drain maintenance for those property owners or the township or the road commission or MDOT or railroad, whoever we're assessing for that drain work, does not come back around until usually sometime in April or May, depending on when we receive that in the treasurer's. That's when it gets deposited into the treasurer's account. So the reason the amount is where we're asking is because the amount of drain work, number one. We haven't, and I did put in the packet, or I say the packet today, Karen and I found, well, she did, but I also found it. The last time the revolver has been upped was in 1996. And it went up to 150,000 at that time. So we've been a long time stretch, almost 30 years of not having that $1 million is always in there. So it's money in, money out. It's like I don't spend $1 million. That money just sits in the revolver. I pay for drains. I assess it. It comes back and then we reuse that money. It just keeps revolving just like what it says in drain code. So that's how it, are we still going to get notes? You can see the number of notes. We're currently at 58 drain notes. And there's a chart in there. I put a pie graph in there too, just to explain it, on how many drain notes we have currently. We're only in July. We still have August and September, and knock on wood, we haven't had any major flooding. So that could increase based on the demand and the request by the public, by the people. So that's kind of where those numbers come from. And it's all broken down on how much staff time that goes into a drain note. Now, are we going to get away from all drain notes? Probably not, because some of those drain notes could be $300,000-$400,000 because those are petition projects. And I don't want to take up half of my revolver for one project because we'll have to get a drain note for that, but that's probably going to be a multi-year project. That could be a 5-year project. So we're still going to get drain notes. This isn't a fix-all, but using the Monsanto money, which is not, again, taxpayers' money. We've been through this Monsanto case quite often lately. I'm happy to answer any questions on that, but this is a large increased savings to all the residents in Ottawa County because somebody lives in a watershed or a drain district and we're going to do maintenance on that drain. Maybe not that year, could be the following year, but we will be doing maintenance on that drain at some point. So that's kind of how that. So some people thought we assess winter and summer taxes. No, drain code says we can only assess in the winter. And then a lot of people think the county just pays for all drain work. That's not true. Townships pay probably a bigger portion than anybody, than the property owners pay as well. And road commission, MDOT, railroad, anybody that's in that watershed. So hopefully that answers some questions on why the increase. And when there is $1 million in there, it's not like I'm coming back to asking for more, because I don't think we'll ever use $1 million, but I put it in there just in case, because there could be a chance we get close to that. But I got all the numbers in the packet to show you how many drain notes we get a year and how many drains we do work in. Usually 200 to 300 drains, sometimes 400 to 500, depending on like 2020, 2021. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Belknap?
Joe, appreciate this. I, in a sense, understand the struggle when you're responsible for large amounts of public utilities like drains. And to get in folks' mind, like since 1996, how much has one piece of guardrail increased in price?
Right.
So I'm supportive of this because I believe it's one of those penny wise type situations. And secondly, the work with the groundwater board, I know we have a lot of conversation about things that can be done to help, I guess, slow the water movement away from, our aquifer back into the lake. Having, I guess, a little bit more flexibility in your office with these types of projects. Do you see that something like this can perhaps be another tool in the toolbox for our water situation?
Yep. Absolutely. It could be.
Okay.
And again, I just want to talk about drain code. So when people go, oh, $1 million, Joe gets hit by a bus today, dies, is somebody going to go in there and just spend? I still have to go by drain code, which is 5,000 per mile per year per drain. That's the state law. So it's not like I'm going to go and go rampant and go spend more money. That's not what the $1 million is for. It's just so I don't go out and keep on borrowing money from banks at a high interest rate. Because currently that 175 that we have in there, and that's been the same since I've been here, obviously, since 2013, we don't charge interest on that. So that's just money I borrow, to do drain work. But again, this is a huge win for Ottawa County residents. But yes, to answer your question, Mr. Belknap, yes, we could use some toolbox money in there to help some of that when we do drain maintenance.
Well, and most of your work too on drain maintenance is probably like equipment rental rates of your contractors. And I can't imagine, running an excavator in 96 versus what it is today.
Correct. Well, it's still 5,000 per mile. So that's what we're, and we use about 10 different contractors and we bid it out. But yeah, the cost is definitely increased, and we haven't really asked for an increase. I think the timing is right with the Monsanto case. So it's not coming out of taxpayers' money. It's coming out of the Monsanto case to cover that. And it's money in, money out. So it's not like I'm coming back next year and going, oh, I need another $1 million, because I'm going to assess it and get that money back and put it back in drains when the money comes into the treasurer's office. And that's usually May, April. It depends.
Further questions? Commissioner Moss?
Hi, Joe.
Mr. Moss?
So who decides like what drains are worked on? Because you said there's a township, homeowners, you obviously. How does that process work?
So we have one drain inspector and then myself. I don't always dress like this. I do get in the field quite often. And we go out and evaluate the calls from the people. So we don't go out and be too proactive because we don't have the time, but we're more reactive. But once we go out there and get the calls, so it's usually me and my drain inspector, and then we take pictures, look at it, bid it out, do the work, and then pay the contractor. And then that drain becomes a negative until I find money for it, whether borrow from another drain, if there's money in another drain that we could use, or go get a note. So it would be me.
So when that happens, is the net result that the homeowners in the drain are eventually paying for it, or does the township pick up some of the cost?
It depends. So every township's different, but like if you go to Holland, Allendale, Georgetown, Park, they all pay a lot of, like 10,000, 20,000. It depends. Those townships don't want property owners to get a $5 assessment. You get up in Crockery, Chester Township, they don't have the funds like on the southern part of the river with the growth and the number of homes, then sometimes they do pay those property owners. So it depends on the number of drains, depends on the number of townships that actually, what their budgets look like. So I work with all 17 townships in the cities. to figure out what that cost would be to the property owner as well. So those discussions are always being had every month for sure. Hey, I got this many amount of drains, we're working in your township. But again, they don't pay until they have to. So townships won't pay, we'll just use Holland Township, $175,000 at their at-large budget. They'll pay for drain work. I don't see that until I see all the money. So it's not like townships just get invoiced and pay for drain work. It's always through drain assessments. They always pay when everybody else does.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
It does. Thank
Okay.
you. One of my questions was, I think you answered it.
Mhm.
Would this lead to more maintenance?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Mhm.
And
Well, let me back up. Depends on what the people call. If the people call, it could be more.
okay.
It's all about, it's relevant to the people or, again, they go out and look and
Yep.
they're the ones that are the driving force of our department to go out and do maintenance.
Okay.
Unless we just see it. But it's when you have so many drains, like over 1,000 that we do, with one drain inspector and myself, we can't catch them all. Especially when you get a windstorm. It could be nice one week. 1 month later, just recently, we had all that wind.
Yeah.
And we got numerous calls a couple weeks ago I think it was a Tuesday morning. We had trees down everywhere. So it depends on the weather events. But yeah, could be more, but I'm not using the money to do more. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, that
Okay.
does make sense. Thank you.
Okay.
You had mentioned that there's 58 notes currently.
Yep.
And does that fluctuate a little bit?
Mhm.
But like next year might be 50 if this wasn't in place.
If you look at the trend,
Yeah.
it keeps going up.
It keeps
It's
going up,
increasing. Yep. And I'm not done yet because there's more notes. I think I have to go get about 10 more currently.
Yeah.
Which I hope not. Maybe this Monsanto money will cover the other 10 that I have to go get currently.
Mhm.
That way I don't have to go get more notes.
So based on the data that we have in our packet, it looks
Mhm.
like on average, it's estimated to cost about 117,000 per year on interest, bond expenses, legal expenses. And then probably some additional staff time as well above
Correct.
that, just being involved in the process.
Yep.
So
So we have a lot of staff time in a note, which
So-
is in the packet. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, saw that. Thank you for providing that.
Mhm.
So by trying to go to a larger revolver, then part of the goal is to just reduce the interest and bond expenses?
And staff time.
Yes.
Staff time is the biggest expense. That's not really included because I can't go charge my staff
Right.
time. So you'll see the interest, you see all the money it takes to get a note.
Yep.
Staff time is more critical almost to me and my department and Ottawa County
Mhm.
than the note interest because my staff's tied up doing drain notes, my chief deputy and my financial analysis.
Has there been estimates done on how much it might save? So,
We,
it's $100,000 a year in interest. You think maybe we'll like drop it by 50% or
we figured 80%.
80%?
Mhm.
That's good.
Mhm. And that's a minimum. I think it could be more because the interest rates, it just depends, but I think it'll be 80%.
Well, if interest rates go up,
Exactly. Don't say that.
Right. Yeah, don't say it out loud. Okay. So I guess one big question, which I'm assuming maybe has already been had by you and staff and others is this the highest and best use of that Monsanto money that the county received? Has there been discussion on that or could that money also earn interest, whether or
Well,
not it's in the revolver? Or could you?
Yeah, the money that's going to be interest is going back to the county, which is in the packet. So any interest on it is going back to the county,
Okay.
general
Okay.
fund, not to my department.
Oh, right. Okay.
So yeah, whatever's in there. And then I did put on the interest amount, how much money that Monsanto money's made from the date that came out of Cheryl's department. I worked with Jason and Cheryl on that, and it's in the packet that I gave you on the very back. I got that last week. I said, like, where are we at with I keep close tabs on interest, how much it's making. I think it's made,
Does anybody have a page number on that?
on the very back, talks about monthly. It's this one right here
Okay. Thank you.
to you this morning, because
Thank you.
I got it last week. I'm like, in case you ask, how much
Yep.
interest? And it's got on there from the time it got invested to now, and looks like a total earned is $358,000
Mhm.
that it's earned. So
So might it earn a little less then, or no?
it probably not. It's going to be pretty similar because it's money in, money out, and it's
Yeah.
all about timing of when we get when we borrow the money from
Okay.
that line item. But it's going to be a little less of it, evidently, but it's not going to be a lot.
But
So any money that is made is going back into the general fund. I talked to Karen about
Okay.
that, so.
And that's handled internally
Yeah,
between
that's all internal.
fiscal and
Mhm,
treasurers.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The only other question I have is about the amount.
Mhm.
And so I guess I'm wondering, why not 500,000? Why not 1.5 million? Why the one? Is there any, can you speak to that a little bit?
I think it's the easiest way to keep track of it. And it's an easiest way that I know that, okay, we start with this, we end with this. It's just an easy amount. 1.5 is too much. I thought about going 500, but I know we could probably use that as quickly as well. So I picked $1 million because I thought it was we already have 175. So I just figured 825, make it an even million, and it makes it simplified for upstairs and the finance and the treasurer's office. And then my department knows this is where we started. This is where we're going to end back up at the end of the year. That makes sense. For the auditors, it'll be easier to keep track of for our department. So that's why the $1 million.
It does make sense. The Monsanto money, is general fund money essentially.
Correct, it is.
So I guess one thing I would wonder is it better to do 750? Would that cover kind of everything and leave more money for the general fund? I guess these are questions I'd ask Karen if she was here, but.
And Karen and I have talked about that a lot, and the Monsanto money isn't going to go anywhere because that $1 million is coming back if we were in emergency and the county needed money. So
right.
It's just going to be in there, and any interest earned is going to go right back to the county general fund.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we were trying to figure out 750, 1.5. We always figured that $1 million would, and then we went off my other counties as well that I had a comparison to. They have, we don't have a maintenance revolver because I don't have a maintenance crew because I privatize everything, which I think we get better pricing that way. Sometimes I wish I had my own crew, be pretty convenient, but with how we do it is very, very cost effective for the taxpayers with all the different contractors we use. But I think, having that set at $1 million, it kind of reflects on our other counties that are same size, but yet less drains because it's just the amount of work we do, simply the amount of work. And I know that, Madam Chair gave me a piece of paper with some more maintenance probably. Those, and as I've been knocking on doors and visiting people, there's like, oh, hey, would you look at my backyard sometime? So it's, I'm like, oh yeah, I write down, take a note. So, to say 750, I think we would use that potentially. And then I don't want to come back to the board and ask for more later.
Right.
Because I hate to ask for more.
You had mentioned like a total amount of drain work per year.
Mhm.
Do you have like the numbers for the last 5 years? Like the total amount done that was needed?
You mean as far as how many drains we worked in?
Like total cost that
It was in the
actually-
annual report. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I go with
Oh,
numbers,
okay.
but it was in the annual report. I give that to you.
Yeah.
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 We got it from when I started in 2013 all the way to 2023. So,
Okay.
and it was in like I said, the annual report of how many maintenance projects. So
Do those add up to like about $1 million a year?
not necessarily,
No,
no.
but
Nope.
but
For sure about 500.
Yeah.
Sometimes 600, sometimes 750 is about where it goes, but then that's in the past.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking forward, I'm looking at the next, 5 years?
Yeah.
I don't have to come to the board in 5 years and go, hey, could I have some more? Because I didn't ask for enough. To be sufficient for quite a few years. If we have more than that, then we got another problem.
Borrow more, more
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah,
So this would eventually give you breathing room as
a
well.
lot of breathing room.
Saying.
Absolutely. And my staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Belknap, did you have a question?
Just remind me how many of our drainage districts that you have under your care.
Well, we got 1,300 drains, so
Okay.
everyone has got its own watershed. So, and there's 1,000 in the books right now, like under Munis, that are in there. Some of them we have done work on yet, but they're fairly new. I feel like every couple months we get another 10, 20 new drains because all the new subdivisions become a drain. There's branches of natural water courses that people petition, which Mr. Moss knows a little bit about the petition process. And so, then they want to add a section or add a mile and add 3 miles. And so we're getting a lot of requests to do more because of the growth. The growth is the driver.
Can you remind me, I'm trying to recall what an average cost for televising a line that you might be responsible for? I mean, these costs are pretty significant.
Anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000, depending on how far we go. Usually you don't get anything for $500-700 anymore. It's like 1,000 to 2,000 just to televise, to see where the cracks are in the storm sewer or where the blockage is, because you don't want to guess it because you'd be wrong and you just wasted money. So we've been cameraing a lot in the last 5 years. We always cameraed, but the last 5 years, ever since 2020, we seem to be cameraing more. I think when the groundwater came up and it was high, it was actually separating storm sewers. And now we're seeing the potholes or the actual sinkholes where those separations are. So we've been doing a lot of cameraing and fixing sinkholes more than, it's a lot.
And the cost of a manhole cover cast?
Oh, I mean, you're probably talking anywhere $500 to $7,500 if you have to replace one or dig it up. And again, I'm only allowed to spend $5,000 per mile per year. So we work with townships. It's either, if I have to spend more than $5,000 per year, per mile on a drain, it has to be either a resolution from the township board or a petition, which, like I said, Mr. Moss knows about the petition. So, I mean, which comes from the people or the township. I could talk drains all day long, so I don't want to bore anybody. I know drains really, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So you talked about, the current model is a reactive model in drain management. Do you know of any that are proactive?
Not necessarily, not with the amount of drains we got. If we had 75, it'd be easy. But when you have so many, and we do, so if we get a break, we will go and inspect some drains that we know are higher maintenance because of all the dead ash trees. And we know that, and we do a woody debris management too. So we try to get involved with more spraying of the woody debris. If you look around now, we've got more growth than I've seen in quite a few years because it got so dry. All the drains seem to be no water in them. So all they did was grow trees in the center of them. But we're trying to do more woody debris management in the last 10 years. And that seems to be working out. So yeah, but it's just hard with the amount of staff we got. I try to keep.
If there are models that you could aspire to.
Oh, we tried. I mean, the easiest way to do it would probably be with a drone and then fly it. But when it's leaf cover, you don't see anything. So you have to wait till, basically leaf off and the crops are off to get into the drains because we do a lot of drain work where crops are on. But it's hard, even with the drone. We do fly over different open areas, but when you get in tree cover, you can't get the drone underneath you have to walk it. The only way you could go be proactive is actually walk the drains.
Even with neighborhoods, they say like water damage is more costly than fire damage. So
It is.
we're able to-
Infrastructure is very critical. I try to be on top of it, but when you got limited staff, we try to do the best we can.
Commissioner Moss?
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Just interested, have you brought this to the board in years prior, or has this come up in years prior?
Kind of, but not really, because it was taxpayers' money and it wasn't good timing, always. Or, I did ask in the past, but I always felt that the timing is right with the Monsanto money. So I did ask, but again, it's taxpayers' money with, in the past.
So in the past, boards would have had to take 825,000, 500,000 or whatever
Yep.
out of the general fund and just
Yes.
move it over.
Yep.
And so you're hoping to use the money that came in from Monsanto to do that.
Mhm. I did ask for ARPA funds back then just to cover that. It didn't happen.
Yep.
I didn't make the bucket list.
Okay.
Just so you know, but I did try. Can't fault me for trying.
That's right.
Because I thought infrastructure to me and water quality and water quantity is pretty important. As an elected official, I thought, can I have some bucket? And there wasn't a bucket for me. So just FYI.
It's good to know. Good. to
Well,
know.
you asked.
Yes,
I'm going to tell you.
it's good to have some background.
Yep.
And I think, your goal here is to save taxpayers' money
Absolutely.
year over year. So I guess I would say, I hope that we could, I know costs continue to go up, countywide, it just is part of inflation and other things.
Yep.
So I hope that if this goes through, that the savings can be realized, and helpful in your department.
I would love to show after that, if it all goes through next week or today and the next board meeting, after about 6 months of having some data collected, because I'm a data collector, then bring it back to the board and say, here's the money here's how much money we saved already in 6 months. This is what my forecast looks like.
Be very interesting.
Absolutely.
Include staff time saved and kind of other work by building in this, other work they're able to accomplish by building
Correct.
in these
Yes.
efficiencies as well.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
That's added on to the interest is the workload.
Any further questions? Being none? Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right. So the drain revolving fund increase to approve and request and allocate an additional $825,000 to the Department of Water Resources Commissioner for the revolving fund. The goal is to increase the Department of Water Resources revolving fund from $175,000 a year to Fund 2, not a year, $175,000 to $1 million. Our request is to add $825,000 to the revolving fund from the settlement received from Monsanto lawsuit. And go to a vote.
Mrs. Wenzel?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mrs. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Belknap?
Yes.
And Ms. Cosby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And moving on to a lease agreement for our countywide postage meters. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a 5-year lease agreement for 13 postage meters with Pitney Bowes, Inc. at a total cost of $114,859.20. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion. I saw Eric come in here, but it seems like this, yeah. Yeah.
I might be able
Yeah,
to
John, you do it.
give you a little bit
I didn't
here.
know if you wanted to present or not. Please right there.
This is a 5-year lease for our USPS postal machines for postage. We do have to replace 5 that are outdated now that they have to be updated. The newest are updated for intelligent mail compliant machines. This is a 5-year lease agreement. We are adding 1 for the Family Justice Center. And this will make all of our machines compliant with the USPS for postage over these next 5 years.
There questions? Seeing none, seems pretty straightforward. We'll go to a roll call vote.
Belknap?
Yes.
Mrs. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel?
Yes.
And Ms. Cosby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item number 11 is FY 2024 budget adjustments. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the 2024 budget adjustments per the attached schedule. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Awesome. In discussion, I saw Kim Walters come in. Can I invite you up because it's been a burning question this morning. Good.
Good morning. I'm Nina Baranowski. I'm the Public Health Finance Manager, so I prepared the BA.
Oh, wonderful.
So I just thought it might be helpful to explain.
Would you mind?
Yeah,
Thank you very
yeah.
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so the grant agreement expires on 9/30, so it's only good this fiscal year. We have no planned expenditures for it this year. So really what the BA is doing is it's cleaning up the budget and getting rid of $1 million variance that you would have at year end. So the budget, if you let it sit there, it would be for $1 million, your actuals would be less. So it's just cleaning it up, cleaning up the budget. There's also another BA on the list that's doing something very similar. That's the 8,810. We're not planning on spending that grant either. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nina. And Kim?
And in reference to the grant, I have requested an extension so that we still have it on the table in the most simplest ways. So we're not just letting it go. We are still holding on to it for as long as we can, and that the city of Holland has applied for their own.
Pardon me, with the city of
The
Holland?
city of Holland applied for their own infrastructure grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the project still moves on, you think? I mean,
I'm holding on to everything. There's so many moving pieces right now with the materials management plan that I'd like to keep as much on the table as possible so that when we look at everything, we have everything.
But to be clear, the county is not canceling the grant or.
Nope, nope, we're just making numbers look good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Trying to clean up those variances because we're getting towards year end. So
That makes sense. Thank you, ladies. Sir, any other discussion? I hope that answers concerns out in the audience as well. All right, seeing no more discussion, the motion on the table is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the FY 2024 budget adjustments per the attached schedule. We'll go to a vote.
All right, Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
and Ms. Cosby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful, thank you. And moving on to committee reports, we have the Treasurer's Financial Month-End Update. And Cheryl Clark here in the audience to present.
Good morning.
Good morning. I saw your billboard yesterday.
Thank you.
Those digital billboards rotate, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I submitted the financial report and the usual graphs, but I also included in my writings some information that I had received from Huntington Securities Incorporated Institutional Investments. It was an update for the week of June 16th through the 22nd, which is just after just before I wrote this report. It just gives you some market update, economic update, weekly overview, and the futures, which I thought was interesting. They're saying there's an 89% probability of 50 basis points in cuts for 2024. So one thing that I wanted to bring up is you'll notice in the chart where it's investment distribution by maturity, it's the bar graph chart. You'll see that there's a lot in the cash. That includes 20 million of ARPA funds that are sitting there. We're just holding that in a mutual fund money market so that it's earning a good interest rate on those funds waiting to be spent. And there was an inverted yield curve, so we are keeping our investments in the short term in the mutual fund money markets, so we can earn a higher rate there. Any questions?
So when you're saying that there's $20 million of ARPA funds waiting to be spent, they're already allocated though, correct?
They could be. We don't transfer the money from this separate mutual fund money market account until they are spent. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right. And we are up to the second round of public comments. I'd like to come to the podium and speak. You have 3 minutes to speak to the dais. Please announce your name and where you vote. All right. Well, hopefully we satisfied questions from the first round. I appreciate your concern and I'm glad we have a solution. Problem solved. All right. With that being said, this meeting is adjourned.